Last time we left off with putting the rubber cement on to the portrait. The rubber cement is dry now, so it's time to start adding some watercolor. And to start off with, I want you guys to use brown and black. And so I've just taken out the little replacement pans from the watercolor palette and just having them out separately, just so we have a little more space and only two colors to work with to begin with. So you're going to start with a black and a brown. You need a cup of water. You need a plastic lid as sort of a palette to mix different strengths of black and brown, meaning like lighter colors have a lot more water and darker colors have a lot less water. And so you can have a variety of values of brown and black in your palette. So this is basically your paint palette right here. We're just going to use these plastic lids, either a rectangle or circle. And there is a container of a bunch of these lids that everybody can share. So I'll just put one of those away, grab one. I also have a variety of brushes. I have two really small detail brushes. I have one slightly wider flat brush, and then I have this kind of medium size round brush. Okay, so to begin with, I want to just start with kind of sort of more natural flesh tones, because remember, this project is a mix of realism and abstract techniques. So, starting with more of a realistic look to the portrait and then adding abstract, more expressive colors and, splashes here and there is going to give it that sort of abstract look that we're going for. So I'm going to start with, grab my palette. I'm going to start with some black. So here's, put this in the camera so you can see it. So here is, you have to, activate watercolor paint with water. So I dipped my paintbrush in water and I'm starting to create some nice dark black. If I want to see what it kind of is going to look like, I can put it on here. It is see-through, so I can see what it looks like with the white underneath. That is pretty dark. If I were to take some water and then water it down with just the paint that was still on the brush, you can see having a lot more water in there gives you a much lighter gray. Okay, so the more water, the lighter the color is going to be. The more pigment and less water, the darker the color is going to be. So I'm going to start with a really dark tone, just getting a little bit more of the pigment on there, and using a detail brush, I'm going to look at my photo. So you want to have your photo in front of you while you're doing this. And I'm going to look to see where the darkest tones are. She has like that smoky eye makeup on her eyes. So she's got a lot of darkness around her eyes. And then below her nose and her upper lip, cheeks, and below her chin on her neck. So I'll start coming in while I'm looking at my photo and adding the darkest areas. Now remember, I did put some rubber cement on the whites of the eyes, as well as on the little highlight, little dot on the colored part of the eye, the iris on the pupil. And so I'm still going to try to be careful with my paintbrush, but I don't have to worry about the whites of the eyes getting covered up because there's resist there. The rubber cement is there. I can also put a dark spot right underneath where the rubber cement is, because the resist is there, but there's going to be the pupil of the eye that is going to show right below that highlight. Okay, now let's get the other eyebrow in, and then I can water down the paint a little bit to get the shadows that are there and aren't quite as dark around her eyes. So looking at my palette, and this is a good gray instead of black. And then I can go in and get that really dark kind of smoky eye effect that is there, as well as the shadow that's in this indentation right here. Okay, so I've only used black so far, and there is also this little pan of brown paint. I'm going to bring the browns in as well pretty soon. It's just that the eye area is so dark that I wanted to start with just black for this area. Okay, and now I think I'll switch to this sort of medium-sized brush. I'm going to make sure I put water on it. So I'm going to grab some of the brown paint. You can see what color it is by going like this. It's a very light brown. I do like to add some black to the brown because it makes it a little bit more of a natural skin tone color. And remember, the more water you add, the lighter it's going to be. Okay, so I feel like this is a pretty good tone. We can just test out, see what it looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. The highlight on her forehead is in the middle, and then it's sort of in the shadow on the edges of her forehead. So I'm going to go like this. Bring it right up into the shadow around her eyes, just right into it, instead of bringing it just to the edge of it. I'm bringing it right up on it. And then right before I get to the rubber cement, you can see I've got a little space here. Paint, plain paper, rubber cement. I'm just going to rinse my brush and just use water, plain water, to kind of go like this and get that brown nice and light before it hits the rubber cement. And that way it'll look like white paper and then very light brown going into a slightly darker brown here. And I can do the same thing for the other side. So I'll just grab this brown paint that I had already mixed up, do the same thing on this side of the forehead, bring it right into the shadow of the eyes. You can always have paper towel on hand, because if you find that your paint starts to bleed in a place where you don't want it to, you can just take a little tip of the paper towel and dab the water away in that spot so it stops bleeding. Okay, and then I'm gonna, again, just take plain water with no color on it and use that to spread out this brown all the way over to the rubber cement in the middle. You can see I'm taking the watered down paintbrush and I'm just kind of pushing the pigment back over to this side so that it eventually, just looks like it's gradually getting lighter as it comes up to the forehead. Okay. And just keep in mind that you're going to be looking at your photo this whole time. I'm going to take some of this brown again and start putting in a shadow here next to the nose. And on this side of the nose as well. I can see in the photo that the right side of the nose is just a bit darker than the left side, so Add a little more pigment there on that side. Now I can see the shadows on her cheek begin here. So I can continue with this brown tone a little further. And then I'm going to start to add in some black to the brown. Do it over here. And I probably need to get it darker than this, but I at least can start. You can always build your color and darkness. So I'm going to start with this color here. Start adding in that shadow to the cheek right in this section. You can always take a little bit more black, and I think I'll add it right here. And then I'll take just water again. This is just water. And I can take these two tones and blend them with water. Spread this out a bit. And then down here for this part, bottom of the face, I'm going to go back in with some brown. Like this, and bring it right up into that black shadow so that it blends and it's not just a brown line against the black shadow. You want them to blend. Again, if you feel like there's too much water and they're blending and bleeding too much together, you can take the tip of a paper towel, you can soak up a little bit of that water so it stops. But actually, this is doing fine right now. I didn't actually need to do that. But if you have too much water in your brush, you will find sometimes that you need to do that. Okay, there's also a really dark shadow under the nose. So I'm gonna actually, well, first do is water down this brown a bit here because it got a little too dark. Okay, and then I'm going to go in with, I'm going to switch brushes. So I was using this one. I think I'll go in with this even smaller detail brush. So I was using this one and this one so far, but this one's even smaller. And I'll get some black paint again and mix it in here where I used the other black paint. And go in with this shadow under the nose. So here, if you look at the photo, you can see under the nose is very, very dark. So I'm constantly looking back at my photo to make sure that I'm following along with where the shadows and highlights are. The shadow from the tip of her nose goes down into this little indentation above the lips. Go back for more paint if you feel like you need it. Okay, again, if it starts to bleed a little too much, like that shadow's getting too wide right there because it's the paper is very wet. If you put watercolor on a part of the paper that's already wet, it will spread, it will bleed. So if you find that happening in a place where you don't want it to happen, just again dab that area to soak up the water to have it stop spreading any further. Okay, and I can see in this area where I put the shadow for the cheek, I want to kind of spread that out a little bit more again. So I'll use my detail brush to do that. Okay, and then the top lip is also very dark. So I think what I'll do is I'll take some brown and put it over here this time, and some black together. And this does not have a whole lot of water on it. This is very much not diluted. So I'm going to use the black brown here on the top lip. and the shadow in the corners of the mouth. I'm still looking at the photo, looking back and forth from the photo to my painting to make sure I'm getting the right shape of the shadow. All right. And then the bottom lip has some rubber cement on it for the highlight. So I don't have to worry about messing up the highlight because it's going to stay that way with as long as you put the rubber cement thick enough, it should stay on there. And I'm putting a lighter color than the top lip and filling that in. And later when it's dry, I can rub the rubber cement off and the highlight will be there for the bottom lip. Okay. And then this brown color, I think I can continue with underneath here, under this shadow. Connect it with the shadow over here under the nose. See a shadow that kind of swoops this way a little bit. And a little bit that swoops this way. And then it starts to get a little lighter right in this section. So I think I'll grab this brush again and just has water on it. I'm going to spread the color I was just using out a bit. Same thing with this side. And now I've got sort of a line here where this paint ended before. And if you use just water, there's no paint in this brush, just water. If you use just water and you kind of do these little swirling circular motions at the edge of where your paint stopped before and dried, you can soften that edge. So I'm kind of getting rid of that line that was there because I don't want it to look like a line on the face. So I just softened the edge, and it does get lighter on the face right here in the photo. So I'll show you the photo. There's a light spot under the dark eye. So I am creating that light spot by just using water at the edge of that brown. And then it gets dark again down here again for another shadow on the cheek. So I can go back with these pre-mixed colors that were down here, and I can start to darken up this area of the face a bit. It's going to have to get significantly darker than that, but this is a good start. There's also a nice big shadow under the bottom lip here, which I'll add in. But now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, not the tiniest, but the next size. I'll use some black, get some water, mix it again with this area where I was just using pure black before. Grab a little more paint, make it darker. And the paper's already wet, so this is going to spread. So see how I just do a little dot and it spreads out thicker. And I'm going to bring it down to the dark shadow that's here. And then I can start to go in with some brown again around the edges of that. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my smaller brush, grab some black paint, and put the shadow in under the mouth. Okay, I can spread that out a little bit using just water with this brush. Not too much water. I'm actually wiping the edge of the brush on the, or wiping that brush on the edge of the water cup, just so it's not dripping with water. And then just spreading out what's there. Maybe grab a little bit more of the brown paint and add that down here. And then leave a little bit of this lighter tone here on this part of the chin. Okay. If you get splatters, don't worry about it because there are going to be lots of splatters later. All right. Okay, so that's the idea. You're going to continue this down onto the neck, onto the shoulders. If you don't, if your person doesn't have a shirt on, well, like this, it's bare shoulders. You're just going to continue this skin tone everywhere you see it. You're going to continue the ears, all of that. I haven't filled in the nose yet, this part of the nose yet. But finish this skin tone with the brown and black first, and then after that, we'll bring in colors. I'm going to end the video here just because I don't want it to be too long, and I will show you a picture of the final result of the black and brown paint after I'm finished with the black and brown.